What's up, YouTube? This is True Raw 4 TV. So, Nick Wright is unveiling this 50 greatest players of the last 50 years list, right? That he's compiled with, I guess, him and someone else to come up with this list of the 50 greatest players in the last 50 years, which, of course, Nick Wright just, like a lot of these guys, they have no respect for players from the 40s until like the 60s. They don't even respect that shit, you know? Um, so that's why I don't really give a fuck about this list. If you don't have Bill Russell, Wilt, uh, Oscar, Jerry in a list in the top 50, who gives a fuck? At least I don't. But anyway, um, Rick Bucher said something stupid. Okay, now Rick Bucher often is the voice of reason when it comes between him and Nick Wright. But this is one time where I have to agree with Nick Wright. I can't believe it, but I'm actually agreeing with Nick Wright in this situation. Rick Bucher thinks that Dwight Howard is on the same level as a Moses Malone. He actually believes they're interchangeable. He believes that somewhat they're great rebounders who are limited offensively in some ways, played on great teams, have great resumes, but he thinks they're similar, and they're not. They're not. Look, are there some things that Dwight Howard do better than Moses? I think Dwight Howard is more athletic, was more athletic. Uh, I think that he's a better shot blocker, obviously, and a more dominant defender. Okay, but every other aspect of the game, Moses was better. Moses was a better offensive player. Moses was a better leader. Moses was a better clutch performer. Moses was an even better rebounder, as great as Dwight Howard was. Moses is obviously probably, well, I would say he's probably the greatest offensive rebounder the game has ever seen. Um, Moses was virtually unstoppable for an 8 window period in his career. Moses got the most out of his talent. Dwight Howard did not. Yes, Dwight Howard has a championship. Uh, However, by that time he was a role player. Moses was the best player on one of the greatest teams in the history of NBA. And before LeBron James arrived, Moses was the best prep to pro player in the history of basketball, period. Moses is a much better a much better free throw shooter. Now, Dwight Howard has the edge when it comes to field goal percentage, and some people will look at that, but what you got to remember is that most of Dwight Howard's baskets are putbacks and alley oops. Moses actually had an offensive game, and range. He had better range, and he would actually take jump shots. But because of that, and because of the fact the game was different, it was a game where the lanes weren't so wide open, and there were actual centers that would guard you down low. There was more resistance to Moses. Therefore, his field goal percentage is going to be lower. But Moses was just a better player, man. Look, career averages. I think there's something like this with Dwight Howard. I think Dwight Howard averages something around 16 points and I think like 12 rebounds for his career. Okay, somewhere in that range. Moses is at 20 points and 12 rebounds. But what you got to remember is that when you look at their prime numbers, the difference becomes much more staggering. When you look at their prime numbers, Dwight goes up to something like 20 points per game and 13 and a half rebounds per game, which is unbelievable. It is. It is unbelievable. But Moses in his prime was averaging 25 and a half points and 15 rebounds per game. 15. I mean, the only guy that comes to mind that in recent memory that comes close to those rebounding numbers is Dennis Rodman. Okay, during his 7-year rebounding championship, and Dennis Rodman wasn't getting you 25 points per game. There was one year I think Moses averaged something like 31 points and 15 and a half rebounds per contest. There was one season Moses was averaging something like 26 points and 17 rebounds per night, over 17 rebounds per night. I mean, he was giving you Dennis Rodman level rebounding. He was giving you 6+ offensive boards per night, and he was giving you phenomenal scoring. He was able to do some things that Dwight Howard couldn't do, which is lead. He was such a dominant player. He was able to lead mediocre teams to a championship. Okay. Not championship, excuse me, to a finals appearance. In 1981, you look at that team, Moses was such a force individually that he was able to drag a team that was extraordinarily mediocre. I mean, by comparison, the 2007 Cavaliers looked like a championship team compared to what Moses was working with in 81, and he took them to the finals. And unlike LeBron, he did not get swept. I can't remember the spread, but I don't think they got swept. I think they won 2 games. And this is Moses going up against a front line that had what Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale, Cornbread Maxwell, and I believe they had Kevin McHale come off the bench at that time. So that it wasn't like he was going up against a team that he could just feast upon. And I think the only reason why they did beat them is because they had the personnel to neutralize Moses Malone. That's how dominant he was. Dwight Howard had MVP seasons, like he had MVP caliber seasons, 3 or 4 of them. Moses actually won 3 MVP awards during a period of time when you had great players at their peaks, like Skywalker, David Thompson, Magic Johnson, young Magic coming into the league, young Larry Bird, Kareem already established. You had George Gervin, you had Adrian Dantley, you had Alex English. You had a lot of great players who were playing at that time at a high level, and Moses was doing this and getting MVP awards. Dr. J, it's amazing. So no, there's to me, Dwight Howard is great, but there's a reason. There's a separation between him and Moses, a tremendous separation. And over time, Moses has become very underrated. Um, to me, Moses is something around a top 12 to 15 player all time, somewhere in that range. He's phenomenal. And even when he was past his prime, even when he was past his prime, he was still a guy and got bigger and heavier, 270. He was still a guy that could get you 20 and 12. Even when he got old, into the 90s, he was a guy that could still get you 19 and 10. You see what I'm saying? Like, he stayed really good for a very long period of time. Dwight Howard has fallen apart. And Dwight has kept himself in great shape, but the game has fallen apart. But anyway, tell me what you guys think.